I knit it! I own you! I can buy anything! Nothing can buy me now. Wait and watch.
A billionaire steps into Judge Caprio's courtroom like the world already belongs to him. His name is Alexander Grant. A man whose net worth is discussed in business schools, whose buildings scrape the sky, whose signature can shift markets. He doesn't wait to be acknowledged. He doesn't look nervous. He doesn't even pretend to respect the process. He moves like he's arriving at his own boardroom. Custom navy suit tailored within an inch of perfection. Shoes polished to a mirror shine. A quiet watch on his wrist that costs more than the average salary in the city. He stands there not as a citizen, but as someone who has never, in his entire adult life, heard the word no without finding a way to buy his way past it. The courtroom is quiet. People watch. A whisper of breath. A flicker of curiosity. Who walks into a courtroom like this? Who looks at a judge like they are something to be acquired rather than respected? Judge Caprio reviews the citation. Calm. Steady. Professional. A routine case. A traffic violation. A matter that should take minutes. But Alexander Grant has no interest in minutes. He is a man accustomed to accelerating outcomes. What's the number? He says. No greeting. No acknowledgement. No respect. Just transaction. But it's the next sentence that freezes the air. The one spoken casually. Carelessly. Confidently. The sentence that will echo long after this day ends. I own everything in this city. And people like you work for people like me. The courtroom stops breathing. Because what happens next is not a legal proceeding. It is a lesson. A reckoning. Remember this moment. A mirror held to power. Subscribe and comment with your city below to join real judge stories, where respect has no price. Morning light filters through the tall windows of the Providence Municipal Courthouse, casting long muted shadows across polished wooden benches. The room carries that familiar blend of solemn quiet and distant murmurs, the kind of silence that expects respect rather than demands it. People sit in rows, waiting for their names to be called. Some are anxious. Some are tired. Some are simply hoping to get through the day without another burden added to their lives. At the center of it all, elevated slightly above the room, sits Judge Frank Caprio. Age has given him wisdom rather than weariness. His expression is calm, measured, compassionate when appropriate, firm when necessary. He has seen every kind of person walk into this courtroom: students, workers, parents, neighbors, strangers. The wealthy, the unseen, the forgotten, and the ones who believe the world bends to them. The bailiff calls the next case. Heads turn as Alexander Grant rises. He does not glance around. He does not acknowledge anyone. He walks as though he expects the floor to move for him. Each step controlled, precise, predestined. A man who has built empires and broken competitors without looking back. He takes his place at the podium, not as someone participating in due process, but as someone evaluating how quickly he can leave. The courtroom stills, because the moment feels different now. Something in the air shifts. The stage for confrontation is set. Alexander Grant does not simply stand at the podium. He occupies it. His presence has weight, the kind that makes people glance twice without understanding why. There is a precision in how he holds his posture, shoulders relaxed, chin slightly lifted, eyes sharp and scanning. Not with curiosity. With assessment. As if he is already calculating the value of every object, every person, every second spent here. He places one hand casually on the podium, not to steady himself but to claim it, like territory being marked. His other hand remains at his side, fingers lightly tapping a rhythm only he understands, the tempo of a man who is always waiting for the world to catch up to him. His suit is a masterclass in quiet authority, no flashy labels, no loud colors. Subtlety is the most expensive form of confidence. The fabric falls perfectly, the stitching invisible, every detail crafted to appear effortless. Even his watch, though understated, radiates wealth the way heat radiates from sunlight. He glances around the courtroom, not seeking engagement, but confirming that nothing here impresses him. Not the seal of the state. Not the rows of citizens. Not the man in the robe who has presided for decades. To Alexander, this is merely a delay. A procedural inconvenience. A momentary pause in the forward motion of his empire. He is a man who believes the law is a guideline, not a boundary. A suggestion, not a structure. And in this moment he believes he is the most powerful person in the room. Judge Caprio adjusts his glasses and looks up, offering the same warm professionalism he extends to every person who stands before him. "Good morning, sir," he says, voice steady, even human. Alexander Grant does not respond in kind. He gives a small nod, barely a movement. Not acknowledgement, permission. Judge Caprio continues, unfazed. Mr. Grant, you are here regarding a traffic signal violation on Elmwood Avenue at approximately 9:42 a.m. last month. The traffic camera shows your vehicle entering the intersection after the light had already turned red. He speaks clearly, factually, without accusation. Alexander exhales through his nose, slow and impatient. He is already bored. Yes, he replies. I'm aware. There is no apology. No explanation. Just certainty. Certainty that none of this matters. Judge Caprio maintains his composure. Do you recall the circumstances of that morning? Alexander checks his watch. A subtle gesture, yet loud. I don't keep track of individual stoplights, he says. I drive through dozens every day. I'm sure your cameras captured whatever they captured. It happened. Fine. His tone is polite in form, dismissive in spirit. He reaches inside his jacket. A checkbook emerges. Not a card. Not a phone. A checkbook, like a king signing decrees. Let's not prolong this, Alexander says. Just tell me the amount. I'll take care of it right now. The room feels colder. Because in that one sentence the entire philosophy becomes visible. This is not law to him. This is not community. This is not responsibility. This is simply another transaction. Judge Caprio places his pen down. He looks at Alexander, really looks, and the shift begins. Judge Caprio folds his hands, calm as ever. Mr. Grant, he says, this is not a payment counter. This is a court proceeding. We follow process here. Alexander smiles, not kindly. It is the smile of a man who has negotiated billion-dollar deals and walked away unscathed. Judge, he replies, I understand procedure. I deal with regulatory boards, zoning committees, municipal councils. You know how bureaucracy gets. But efficiency is important. So let's be efficient. He opens the checkbook. The pen glides into his hand like it belongs there. What's the fine? He asks again. Let's settle it and we can both get back to our day. There isn't a trace of disrespect on his face. But the assumption is loud enough to fill the room. This is beneath him. Judge Caprio doesn't move. He doesn't raise his voice. He simply speaks. The fine is $85. Alexander laughs. Not loudly, but unmistakably. $85? He repeats as if tasting the absurdity. He begins writing. Tell you what, he says. I'll make it $500. Consider it a contribution to whatever department handles these things. Road maintenance, court improvements, community outreach. Whatever makes the paperwork easier. He tears the check from the book. A gift. A gesture. A message. I pay. You move. Judge Caprio doesn't take it. Mr. Grant, he says, voice firmer now, I don't accept donations in place of proper legal procedure. Alexander's posture changes, not much, just enough. His chin lifts a degree. His eyes narrow in fractional disbelief. He has encountered resistance. Genuine resistance. You misunderstand, Alexander says. I'm not trying to avoid the procedure. I'm trying to accelerate it. Time is the most valuable commodity I have. I run multiple corporations. My schedule is measured in outcomes, not hours. He leans forward slightly. Every minute I stand here, he says, costs me more than that fine. So if paying more saves time, it's logical. Efficient. Rational. The courtroom feels the shift. Not loud. But inevitable. This is no longer about a ticket. This is about power. Alexander slips the unused check back into his jacket with the same deliberate grace he uses when signing contracts that shift skylines. He speaks clearly, every word measured, not rushed, not emotional. Your Honor, he begins, I respect what you do here. I truly do. But my reality is different than most people who come into this room. He gestures lightly toward the benches. Not disrespectfully, just dismissively. I employ over 5,000 people across the state. My companies fund commercial districts, residential projects, civic infrastructure. When I build, I create jobs. When I invest, tax revenue increases. When I expand, entire neighborhoods grow around it. He isn't bragging. He is explaining the world as he sees it. To be blunt, he continues, my time is tied directly to the productivity and livelihood of thousands of families. The longer I spend here, the more output stalls. Not just for me, for the entire network of people who rely on my company's momentum. A calculated pause. It is not arrogance, he adds. It is simply scale. Judge Caprio listens. No reaction. No interruption. Alexander goes on. I sit on development boards, international trade councils, educational endowments. I meet with governors, mayors, foreign investors. I have responsibilities that don't pause because of an $85 fine. His tone remains even. That is why I speak about efficiency. Not because I believe I am above anyone, but because I understand the value of minutes, hours, momentum. You enforce the rules that keep systems functioning. I drive the economic activity that gives those systems purpose. Something shifts in the air. The courtroom doesn't fully grasp it, but they feel it. He believes this. Completely. He leans back slightly as though presenting a conclusion. In simple terms, Judge, I create value. The city runs because people like me make it run. That's not arrogance, it's economics. This is the setup. The final inhale before the strike. The moment right before he says the one thing he can never take back. Judge Caprio takes a moment before responding. Not long, just long enough for the room to feel the silence. Mr. Grant, he says, the law does not adjust based on income or influence. Every person is expected to follow the same process. That includes you. Alexander's expression shifts. Not anger, not frustration, certainty. He speaks slowly as if explaining something obvious to someone who should already understand it. Judge, I think we both know how cities work. No raised voice. No theatrics. Just confidence polished to a razor's edge. I build the buildings. I negotiate the deals. I bring in the investors. The tax revenue from my projects funds the public institutions here. The schools. The roads. The courts. He pauses, one quiet, devastating beat. So let's be honest. His eyes meet Caprio's. I own this city. And people like you work for people like me. Silence. Not a breath moves. The words don't echo. They don't need to. They land heavy like iron dropped onto glass. For a moment, the entire courtroom forgets how to breathe. No one looks at Alexander Grant, they look at Judge Caprio. Because this is no longer about a traffic violation. This is about something older, deeper. Respect. Dignity. The line between power and decency. A woman sitting in the third row lowers her eyes. A young man near the back shifts uncomfortably. Even the bailiff, trained to remain expressionless, stiffens just a fraction. Judge Caprio does not move. His face does not tighten. His voice does not rise. But something subtle changes in the air around him, something still and unshakable. He closes the file gently, setting it aside with deliberate care. The silence isn't empty. It is full. Full of consequence. Full of understanding. Full of the moment before judgment. Judge Caprio finally lifts his eyes to meet Alexander Grant's. No anger. No surprise. Only clarity. Mr. Grant, he begins quietly, I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Alexander says nothing. But the silence confirms everything. You believe, Caprio continues, that because you contribute to the tax base, because your business generates revenue, because your projects bring jobs, that the systems of this city and the people within it exist beneath you. He does not raise his voice. He does not lean forward. He simply states the truth sitting in the room. You believe that wealth grants exemption. That success grants superiority. That public institutions, including this courtroom, are accessories to your convenience. Alexander's jaw tightens, not in fear but in disbelief that someone is not folding. Judge Caprio goes on. I have been on this bench for many years. I have seen CEOs, athletes, celebrities, students, single parents, veterans, the unemployed, the forgotten, and the invisible. I have watched people walk in with nothing but regret, and people walk in with nothing but ego. He pauses, let the room listen. And I have learned something simple. Money is not character. Power is not integrity. Wealth is not worth. Somewhere in the back of the courtroom, someone nods. They don't even realize they did. You say you create value, Caprio continues. And perhaps you do. The city grows because of development. Jobs do matter. Progress matters. But none of it, excuses the belief that you own the people who make the city function. His voice remains steady. The teachers who shape children. The police officers who protect neighborhoods. The nurses who work through exhaustion. The custodians who keep schools clean. The clerks who keep government running. The judges who uphold the law you expect others to follow. He lets each role hang in the air, human and real. These people are not beneath you. They are not accessories to your accomplishments. They are the foundation on which your success rests. A different kind of silence fills the room now. Not shock. Understanding. Judge Caprio leans back slightly, not retreating, settling into certainty. You believe that because wealth flows through your hands, power does as well. But true power isn't the ability to pay your way out. True power is the ability to behave with dignity, humility, and respect, even when you believe you don't have to. He allows himself one steady breath. You walked into this courtroom as though it belonged to you. You tried to purchase efficiency. You attempted to convert justice into transaction. And then, with full confidence, you declared that you own people like me. The words fall heavy. Heavy enough to stay with everyone listening. In this room, Mr. Grant, the law owns us both. No applause. No noise. Just the truth placed on the table, immovable. Judge Caprio doesn't reach for dramatics. He doesn't raise his voice or strike the bench. He simply opens a different file, one he rarely uses. Mr. Grant, he says, the fine for a red light violation is $85. Under normal circumstances, you would pay the amount, and this case would conclude. A brief pause. But we are no longer discussing a traffic violation. Alexander's posture changes, more rigid now, less effortless. For the first time, the certainty in his eyes flickers. This court, Caprio continues, is empowered to consider behavior, intent, and respect for judicial authority when determining penalties. You entered this courtroom expecting it to conform to your terms. You attempted to convert legal due process into a transaction. And finally, you declared ownership over the very institution responsible for ensuring fairness. No one moves. No one even shifts. This is not about punishing success, Caprio says. It is about correcting disrespect. He lifts his pen. For the red light violation, the fine remains $85. Alexander relaxes, too soon. But for your willful contempt of this court, your disregard for the principles of equal justice, and your explicit declaration of superiority over public servants. He writes the numbers slowly. The sound of pen on paper feels loud. I am imposing an additional fine of $4,915, bringing your total to $5,000. A ripple moves through the room. Not shock. Recognition. A lesson is being delivered. Alexander inhales, sharp, controlled. Furthermore, Judge Caprio continues, you will complete 50 hours of community service. Not symbolic work. Real work. Work that contributes to the well-being of the people you claim to own. Alexander's voice finally breaks the silence, low, strained. You're assigning a billionaire to labor? Caprio nods once. No. I am assigning a citizen to service. The distinction lands heavier than the fine. You have 90 days, Caprio concludes. Failure to comply will result in further legal action. Do you understand these terms? Alexander doesn't answer immediately. But when he does, the voice is different. Yes, Your Honor. Not ownership. Not confidence. Recognition. 3 days later, Alexander Grant stands outside Providence Community Outreach Center, a brick building tucked between an aging church and a small grocery store that looks like it has survived far more than the city around it. He isn't wearing his tailored suit today. Just a simple shirt. Dark jeans. Shoes without the shine. But clothes don't hide history. The staff notices him immediately, not because of who he is, but because of how he carries himself. Years of command do not disappear overnight. Inside, the air smells of warm bread, coffee, and something simmering slowly on the stove. A line of people waits, some tired, some hopeful, some simply hungry for a meal and a place to sit without being looked through. A woman approaches. She is in her 60s, sturdy, steady, with the kind of quiet authority that comes from surviving things others talk about but will never understand. You're Grant, she says. He nods. I'm Maria. I run this place. She doesn't offer her hand. Not out of disrespect, out of equality. You here for service hours? He clears his throat, the words unfamiliar on his tongue. Yes. 50. Maria nods once. Good. You'll be in the kitchen today. Dishes, prep, whatever is needed. Follow instructions. No exceptions. There is no hostility. Just truth. Alexander steps into the kitchen. The heat is real. The work is constant. The pace is steady, unglamorous, necessary. He washes pans that have layered seasoning from 10,000 meals. He wipes counters, stacks trays, rinses cups, moves crates, takes out trash. No one congratulates him. No one recognizes him. No one cares about the world he built. They care about whether there are enough plates when the next group comes in. Hours pass. His shoulders ache, a different kind of burden than boardrooms and negotiations. His hands smear with soap and steel wool and warm water. His back grows tight. But something else happens too. He listens. He hears the volunteers talk, teachers, retirees, students, nurses coming off night shifts. No one paid. No one forced. People here because someone should be. He hears laughter from a man who owns nothing but still tells jokes like joy is a language shared freely. He sees a young mother cutting her child's food into tiny bites before touching her own meal. He watches a teenager quietly put half his portion aside to take home to someone waiting. These people are not weak. They are not dependent. They are alive, surviving, enduring, fighting. On his break, Alexander sits outside on the back step. The city hums in the distance, the world of schedules and deals and deadlines continuing without him. A man sits beside him, mid-40s, jacket worn thin, hands rough, eyes sharp with a life that never offered easy days. "You're the guy from the news?" the man says, not accusing, not mocking, just stating. Alexander looks away. "Yes." The man nods, lighting a cigarette with the tired grace of someone who has learned to make small rituals sacred. "You said you own people like him?" the man says. No judgment. Just memory. Alexander closes his eyes. "I was wrong," he says quietly. The man takes a slow drag. "Everyone's wrong sometimes. Difference is whether you learn or just talk." He gets up and walks back inside. Alexander doesn't move for a long moment. Because the lesson doesn't hit like a hammer. It settles like weight. And the weight is real. He returns to the kitchen, picks up the next pot and continues working. Not performatively. Not resentfully. Present. For the first time in a long time. 50 hours is not a long time in the life of a billionaire. But inside the outreach center, hours are not measured in money, they're measured in moments. On his final day of service, Alexander arrives before the doors open. No one asked him to. No one expected him to. He simply does. He helps set tables, arranges trays, fills water pitchers. He moves with less calculation now, not every step controlled, not every gesture curated. He is simply present. Maria watches him from across the room. Not with approval. Not with skepticism. With recognition. When the meal begins, Alexander steps aside and lets others serve first. He waits his turn to carry plates, to clear trays, to refill cups. He works quietly. But something different happens today. People speak to him. Not about money. Not about the case. Not about headlines. They speak to him like a person. A man tells him about losing his job after an injury. A woman describes taking 3 buses to bring her children to school. A teenager talks about wanting to be a chef someday. Alexander listens. Really listens. These are not statistics. Not economic units. Not beneficiaries of charity. These are lives. Whole, complicated, brave lives. When the final rush ends and the kitchen is being cleaned down, Maria approaches him. "You finished your hours?" she says. Alexander nods. "Yes. You can go." He looks at the sink, full of soaking pans, and then back to her. "I'll stay and finish the dishes." It is a small sentence. A quiet one. But in quiet moments, truth reveals itself. Maria nods. A nod of respect, not approval. That night, long after anyone knows or notices, a donation is made to Providence Community Outreach Center. $500,000. No signature. No announcement. No press. Just a note. For dignity. For community. For learning what I didn't know. Alexander Grant walked into that courtroom believing the city belonged to him. Believing power was measured in money. Believing respect was something that could be bought, negotiated, or traded like assets on a balance sheet. But respect is not a currency. It is a choice. Judge Caprio did not defeat him. He revealed him, to himself. Not through punishment, but through perspective. In the courtroom, wealth holds no weight. In the kitchen, status holds no meaning. And in the quiet moments when a man is alone with his own thoughts, ego has nothing to stand on. The world remembers grand buildings and booming companies, but people remember how you treat them when you believe you don't need to. Justice is not about making anyone smaller. It is about reminding all of us what makes us human. Dignity. Humility. And the willingness to see others not as functions of our success, but as lives equal to our own. You can own property. You can own companies. You can own influence. But you cannot own respect. Respect must be earned. Subscribe and comment with your city to join Real Judge Stories, where every life has value and every story has meaning.